Alright, you guys ready for another fun time winter project? We're going to replace the intake manifold gaskets on the 93 Corvette with the LT1 engine. There's an oil leak at the back of the intake manifold where the oil pressure sender is. Well, that also gives you a vacuum leak, so I'm going to show you how to replace those gaskets. It's not too bad. I'm going to do it on a two-part series. This is part one, obviously. We'll have part two, and I'll show you how to get that done. I'll put a description across the screen, also down here in the comments. While you're there, don't forget to subscribe and like. I appreciate it. Let me know what you're doing to your car this winter. So whenever it warms up out here, we'll be able to go for a ride. So thanks again for subscribing, and I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is drain the coolant, and that's right here is your drain. So I'll back that out and drain that down. We want to do that because the throttle body has coolant hoses connected to it, and we don't want that running all over, so let's drain it. Coolant's drained. Next, remove the air filter. Unbolt these 3 bolts. Remove that air box. We'll remove the intake tube here. Disconnect the air temperature sensor, disconnect the throttle body sensor, throttle body position sensor. Down here is the idle air control, that gray connector there. We'll disconnect that. Disconnect the MAP sensor, manifold absolute pressure sensor. We'll disconnect these vacuum lines. There's one here already loose. This one, pull that back. There's another vacuum line down there. That one's bulging. That's going to need to be replaced. Then we'll remove the coolant hoses that go to the throttle body. That's this one here with the writing on it. This one. And then there's one on the other side down in here. This one here. We'll remove those. Then I'll disconnect that bolt back in there. That's the bracket for this wiring harness. Oops, right along here. So we'll disconnect that. We'll disconnect the bracket for this vacuum sensor, solenoid. Disconnect this connector. And these vacuum lines, which are pulled back now. These two got to get pulled off. Remove it from the, this is the fuel pressure regulator, so we want to remove that, and we'll get to the next step. This is what the bolts look like. 3. In fact, what I'll do is I'm going to disconnect the air intake sensor right now. Move that. Then I'm going to loosen the clamp up for the air intake tube. There it goes. Okay. So what I'll do is pull this off now and pull the whole thing up. There we go. Alright, quick update. I got all the connectors removed. Electrical connectors. The 2 hoses that go to the throttle body are removed. There's one there, this one, and then this one here is off now. That one connects over here to the main radiator hose, upper radiator hose right here. What I did was I took a 14 millimeter and loosened this one. This nut here, this is for the vacuum solenoid bracket. So that fits down on there like that. So I'll move that out of the way. Now I'm going to remove this bolt right here to get this harness connector disconnected. I'll get these vacuum lines out, and we'll start unplugging injectors. Oh, and these fuel lines also. So I removed the bolt out of this connector bracket. It's a 9/32, so what I like to do after I take the bolt out of something like this, I just move it out of the way,
and then screw the thing back in. That way it doesn't get lost and it helps you remember where it went. So just put that in a couple of turns, a few threads like that. This is one of the studs that holds the that cover that says Corvette. Anyway, that's a 10mm down there, and you need to remove that because there's a wiring harness bracket underneath it. And let's see if I can show you that. So this one's already been loosened. You got to use an open end wrench. A deep socket wouldn't fit on here for me, 1/4 inch drive. So remove that, and then you can see right there, there's the bracket. Now it's loose. Tack that one back there now, that nut, to get the rest of the harness loose. Right there, right down in there. Time to remove the fuel lines, the return and the supply and return. So what you do is you push these rubber boots back. Check out my fuel filter tips and tricks video and you'll see that. And then you need to take these adapters. I got a 5/16 and a 3/8. I'll slide these over like this and push back this way to release, to disconnect the line. I don't think I can do it with one hand, so I'll do that off camera. Oh, wait a minute, got it. There's some fuel. Make sure you catch that fuel, and put a rubber stopper in the end of the supply and then tape it off. That'll keep debris out and any extra fuel from running out. So we got that removed now. Time to release the injectors. Push on the metal clip and pull up. Wiggle and pull it up. Get this one loose already here. There we go. And that's what this looks like. So I'll do that on these back. The vacuum line here is disconnected, and I think we'll start moving to the secondary air pump lines here. This is a check valve. We'll start disconnecting this stuff. Okay, now I'm going to remove the throttle bracket. That's right here, throttle cable bracket. And then what I'll do is just drop the cable off of this bracket here, and we'll remove this. Here's what you do. To remove the throttle cable, push this all the way up like that, like wide open throttle. Then you want to reach down here, grab that cable, and then this little piece here will slip out. There we go. And it just pops out and release it. I'm not sure if I got that on cam or not, but here's the piece, here's the cable. Alright, and then you want to gently pull this tab back a little bit right here. This one here, there's a little tab, and then slide this whole thing out this way towards us. And that's how that'll come out. Just like that, and then the cable's released. And then what I do is just lay this off to the side. Next, we got to remove the alternator bracket, which is right here because it's bolted to the intake and it's in our way. So let's remove these 3 bolts. This is a 14. You got a 14 here, down there, and a 13. That'll get the bracket out of the way. And before we do that, let's go over to the battery. We'll remove this bolt, which is a 10mm, and we'll just disconnect it so there's no chance of arcing, especially when you have the fuel lines disconnected. Alright, alternator bracket's out of the way. That's gone now. Let's release the 4 remaining fuel injector connectors. You got 1, 2, 3, and 4 there. Then let's disconnect the PCV hose, which is down in here, right here. This is the PCV valve if you're looking for that. That loops around over to here. We'll disconnect that. We'll disconnect this vacuum line up here, this one, that runs to the brake booster, back over to here. So we'll disconnect that. let's remove this bracket for this vacuum solenoid here, right down there. That's the EGR solenoid. So we'll remove that. And we need to remove this pin here because this also has a bracket for the wiring harness. So we'll take that off and get to the next step. An update on where we're at. So I've got this 13 nut there loosened up. That's for this solenoid, the EGR solenoid bracket that we saw. So I'll pull that out. What I did to get better access to that and to remove the vacuum line on the EGR back here, I just disconnected this secondary air tube here. It has a speedy clamp. The speedy clamps just latch in. Let me pull it out and show you. They just latch in like this together. So what you do is basically slide one side off the other side like that, and then they'll open up. So you don't have to cut these or break them. You can reuse them. And then when you're ready to clamp it down, all you do is put them together like this and squeeze. That's it. So I think we're ready to get to the next step. I'm going to remove the fuel rail, which are these 4 bolts up here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we'll yank that off the top. That should give us a little more room to work back here. Get this stuff loose, because I need to get these 2 bolts down in here for the air tube, right down in there. Well, there's one nut or bolt. There's another one on the other side. It's a flange. So once that flange is removed, I think we're pretty close to yanking the whole thing out. Now I'm going to remove the 4 bolts that hold down the fuel injection rail. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're 10 millimeter.